Hello and welcome to KennyRoy.com. I'm Kenny Roy. This is the Ask Videomail for the week of February 20th, 2012. Welcome to the site to the new members and welcome back to the old. Don't forget, the Ask Videomail is, as always, your chance to get your question in character animation or performance answered in a video just like this one. But how am I going to answer your question if you don't send it to me? So please send me your questions to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I promise I go through all the questions and I pick out the ones I think will help the most people. There's no such thing as a stupid question, and of course it's the best way to get the most for your subscription here on kennyroy.com. If you haven't sent one in, please do so now. Don't forget, you can also send me your Maya so if you are stuck on your shot for any reason, just send it to me. Maybe I'll bring it up on camera and give you your own little demo, your own little tutorial, and get you unstuck. So it can be anything from a question on how to make a character do a certain action, an animation question, a technical question, or just send me your Maya file and have me sort it out. Who knows? So please do so if you haven't already. It's a lot of fun. A little bit of quick news you probably have noticed, because I've been trying to make you notice that there is a countdown on the homepage of kennyroy.com. It is counting down to the 24-hour animation marathon that I'm doing to kick off the production of my short film, The Little Painter. And I will be making a Kickstarter page. You can check that out. There will be a specific, what I want to talk to you about right now is a specific prize level, or not prize, reward level for people who donate $250 to the film. Now it sounds like a lot of money, but what I'm going to be doing is creating a special area on kennyroy.com that is designed just for those people, and it's going to have a ton of things. It's going to have a production blog, it's going to have production videos, there's going to be walkthroughs, and just like basically the same thing that the 24-hour marathon is, basically just hours and hours of work being done on the film, and I'll try to narrate as much as I can, but I'll turn the camera on and then just like record for an hour, 2 hours, whatever, and just talk about what I'm doing on the film. You'll also get some assets from the film. I'll be releasing some rigs, some of the assets, so you can check them out yourself. So it's a pretty big educational reward, and if you donate to the film at that level, then you get access to that. And so that'll pretty much last for an entire year, because that's how long I think the film is going to take to make. It's about 1 year from when I start. Okay, so so it sounds like a great prize for people who want even more content from kennyroy.com, and the money will go towards the making of the film. Okay, so just think about that, and look forward to seeing you all. Check out the live stream on the homepage of kennyroy.com when that countdown is done, which is March 5th, is the 24-hour animation marathon. Tell your friends. I'd love to see dozens of people. I know you can't watch for 24 hours. That'd be almost as hard as animating for 24 hours straight. But if you can pop in, just give me a few words of encouragement. It's going to be really tough. I'm going to be down to the wire because I'm taking on a really tough shot in order to really promote the film and show that I'm going to be working hard on this thing. Okay, so thank you for that, and look forward to this adventure, and hope you come along on the adventure with me. Okay, so this week's question is it's a good question. I want you to think about this question the way that you think about it from a workflow standpoint. That's why I like it. I always like to pick out the ones that have to do with workflow. So let's take a look at the question real quick. So this is a very interesting question, and it was phrased very interestingly. Hopefully the gears are turning in your head right now why I think that this is a really good workflow question. Alex basically asks, what point or what can you look for in the graph editor to re-inject life into your scenes? Now, there's a technical and an artistic side to every craft, and animation is no different. Our technical side is the graph editor. Artistic side is like the pose choices that we've made. Alex apologized. I didn't show you the part of the email where she said, like, I'm sorry if this has been answered already, but if it has, you know, just a little bit more insight would be great. Well, okay, fine, but, you know, this is more the technical side. So on the artistic side, we have already said that basically part of your workflow should be to, at a certain point, definitely by blocking, certainly in blocking plus, before you polish, you should have your thumbnails or whatever reference that you gathered that inspired you. That tiny little nugget that's in there that inspired you is what's going to make this animation fantastic. So you have to have that out, and you have to hold that as a standard that you want to achieve. Okay? So that being the case, it's all about keeping true to that inspiration, that piece of inspiration. Okay? So with that said, with that out of the way, what is next is you have to know at what point technically you are starting to basically stray from the animation, the performance choices, and the technique that you've put into your scene. So let's switch over. Let's take a look here at Maya, and you recognize this scene. This is the intermediate cartoony animation scene. Now, I did this, I animated this in basically a week, basically, and did I take it to a level of the best animation that I've ever done? No, but it does have a lot of the polish aspects that I do like to get into a shot. Okay, like, I was very happy with the nice, do I have a shot camera? Yeah, I was very happy with the nice, arc that happens on the body, with this wind up right here. It's really nice and smooth. I worked long on that. I definitely took my time. Trying to get the energy right. So there's a lot in here that's working well, but there's still plenty of polish to do. So I wanted to show you a few of the very, very well-known, well-tread areas of the graph editor where you can tell technically what's actually going wrong or what's going right. And this has to do with going from step to spline. Okay, so I have a sketchbook open right here. So when you have a stepped key, right, you basically have two keys and the computer does not interpolate. It basically jumps to the new key when the old one, or jumps to the new key wherever you set the new key, right? It doesn't hold the old one. So the very first thing that I recommend you do before you go, and this is workflow now, before you go from step to spline, is you define your holds. So in Maya, if you want this to be an 8-frame hold, okay, over 8 frames, then you set another key right here. Okay? And if you want this up here to be a 10-frame hold, then you set another key right here. It's not going to do anything in your animation when it's in stepped mode, but when you switch it to spline, let me choose a new color like blue, okay? When you change it to spline, what you'll get is, depending on your interpolation, something like this, where the animation isn't completely broken because you've defined your holds, okay? And that's really important to remember. I've said many times, okay, many times that one of the things that you have to do if you're using stepped mode is you have to define your keys. All right, you have 2 keys right here. All right, what did these 2 keys, let's do 3 keys. All right, what do these 3 keys represent? Is it the moment that the movement is done and you've actually hit the pose, basically the beginning of the hold? Is it the first time that you go through the pose, so allowing for overshoot? Is it the middle of the pose? Or is it the end of the pose? Okay, allowing for anticipation. So if you don't define it, then you're going to get basically a curve when you spline it. All right, this will be very, 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 you know, it'll look very snappy because there's no interpolation. But when you spline this, it'll turn into this, okay, which doesn't look anything at all like the stepped mode that you had, okay, at all. But if you also, even if you do set your holds, decide on how long your holds are going to be, okay, like this, and then when you spline it, I'll do this one in yellow. When you spline it, you get, that's not bad color. Let's do magenta. When you spline it, oops, you get this. Okay. This might not allow for overshoot, right? So then you're playing with this tangent right here, and you start adding overshoot. All right, and then you find out that you need another key right here. Okay. So maybe it would be a better idea to define this, to define, you know, your keys, your holds, as the moment when the hold actually begins, which is right here, instead of right here, which is, you know, I find that it's kind of nicer to define your overshoot with your with a key than to do it with tangents. If you have really well-defined overshoots like this with a key, and there's no key right here, and you want to then remove this key and try to do it with the tangent handles of this key and this key in order to clean up your graph editor, that's all fine. But I find that, you know, when you make a conscious decision, it's always better. It always turns out better. So this is what I propose. When you have your keys, know every single time what it is. For me, it's pretty much the beginning of the hold. Okay? So if I'm defining my holds, okay, then I know that I need to leave time. I'm not going to put this one right here because I want to have time to overshoot that pose. So I'll put this one right here, knowing that when I spline this, it's going to turn into this, but then I can set a key up here and then actually define a nice overshoot into my pose. I've given myself enough time, okay? And this allows for all the snappiness that I want. This could be 4 frames and then a 4-frame transition and then like a 6-frame hold or whatever, okay? So that's a very common thing. Another very common thing that we see is flat tangents being completely flat for a long time in the middle of the animation. You can pretty much be guaranteed that if you see this in the animation, that it's not your choice and you did not want this. So this is definitely a place where you can look in your animation, try to find all the super flat tangents that are there for a long time, okay? Pretty much should never be like this, pretty much 99% of the time. Normally what I do is, even if something's supposed to be like pretty much totally static, I set this key, and then I set this key a lot, you know, like more than I would want it to hold, right? And then I grab a point right here and middle mouse drag and copy and paste it, and then it brings that key up, right? And then I do that over and over and over again until I get just the most subtle hint of movement right here in this section. And then it comes out, right? All right, so that's a very common thing. Another very common thing is when you were defining in your stepped mode keys and the tangent just doesn't work. So it'll come up here, there'll be a key, and then it'll kind of like do this weird, almost like wiggle out, where this tangent, it's clearly supposed to be, or I'll switch colors, it's clearly supposed to be a nice, you know, smooth thing like this, and it's not quite flat, but for some reason the tangent is just at a really odd angle and Maya just kind of screwed it up. That's another thing that you can just pretty much go through your animation almost blindly and just fix these tangents to make it so that the animation goes, you know, a lot smoother through everything, okay? So those are the things you want to look out for, all right? Where in your animation you are defining these stepped keys to be, all right? Then defining those holds, leaving room for overshoot if you want, or leaving room at the end for anticipation, okay? Then going through looking for flat tangents, perfectly flat, and then also looking for these weird kind of odd wiggly giggly slopes, okay? So let's just really quickly jump in here and see. I've selected his chest control, which has translation and rotation. This is a pretty flat, but let's zoom in on it and see. Actually, it looks like I did what I just said I did, all right? It's not actually perfectly flat. Looks like I did just a tiny, tiny, tiny little bit of a hold, and this tangent does not look like Maya gave it to me. I probably did this myself, so I was cleaning up that area, okay? But here is a section that probably Maya did give me. This little flat section right here. It's probably supposed to be just a little bit like this, because this looks like a little bit of anticipation. Why would the rotation lock in, just like snap into that flat place before it moves wildly like that? It probably shouldn't. And then here's a place where the slope is just a little weird. Like I said, this looks like I did it. I was in control right here in this portion of the graph editor. And then it looks like when I was polishing, I just kind of lost a little bit of control. What I would probably do here is make a buffer curve and then show buffers, okay? And then just kind of maybe dilutes. Oops, dilutes. Oops, I just pick walked up the hierarchy. All right, here we go. All right, let's go back to that section. Sorry about that. So I would probably make a buffer curve like I showed you, and then just kind of make this a little bit more, and maybe delete this one. Make this just a little bit more of a beautiful slope, you know, just kind of, you know, guess as to what was supposed to be done here. You know, maybe something a little bit more like that. Okay. Now, these are the kind of changes that are more felt than they are really seen. I mean, for all intents and purposes, this is all going by 24 frames per second, and is this really going to be seen? That little difference that I just made? Probably not. But when it is all right, when you've touched everything and you've corrected all those little mistakes, defined your holds, gotten rid of all those flat places, and then really looked at those slopes that Maya gives you and kind of smooth those out, man, that animation is something else. I'll tell you what, it is something else when you've touched it all. It's really fantastic. So those are things you should look out for. Dive into your graph editor, maybe get out an old scene right now and look at your graph editor and see if you can find those things that I just talked about. And in your workflow in the future, on the artistic side, we know we're supposed to have our thumbnails out and compare our thumbnails to our animation long into the process, because that was the inspiration. We're trying to match that. Okay, but on the technical side, in your workflow should have just a place where you stop and say, like, what do my curves look like? And go in and look for those things that I just pointed out. And in the future, you know, define those places in your step keys that are really, really talking about either the length of your hold, leaving room for anticipation or follow through, and those kinds of things, okay? That was a great question. I really enjoyed answering it. Please send me more questions. If you haven't already, what are you waiting for? Send your questions to webmaster@kennyroy.com. I go through all the questions. I promise there's no such thing as a dumb question. Only a dumb Kenny, okay? Thanks for all your support. I'm still having a great time on the site. I hope you are too. Good luck with your animation, and as always, rock on.